I have great pleasure in welcoming you here this morning to have the celebration of the Dikshitar Aradhana. This is the third year, as Mr. Ramaswamy mentioned before. We normally celebrate the Tyagaraja Aradhana in early winter in the month of January. Then Mrs. Char conducts a Purandara Dasa and the composers weekend, actually from Friday till probably some Monday morning, right? Around so with that gave me a thought that we should try to introduce more such events and then cover other composers as well. So Tyagaraja was covered, Purandara Dasa was the father of Carnatic music. So when Mrs. Ramaswamy offered to organize a celebration in memory of Muthuswamy Dikshitar, we in the education group jumped at the opportunity. The cultural committee organizes a number of music concerts right in this auditorium. You are all familiar with the paddhati of the recital, where we listen to great music, but then we never get behind it, the compositions, the composers' virtues, their style, etc. So this gives us an opportunity to explore somewhat in depth the special features of the composers and the compositions. I do not want to anticipate what Mrs. Murali is going to say about the greatness of Muthuswamy Dikshitar's compositions, nor do I want to anticipate Dr. Swaminathan's special lecture on the Navagraha Kritis, which are the feature of this year's program. I merely want to say that Muthuswamy Dikshitar was the youngest of the Trinities. He was quite versatile. He was a great composer. His music had great grandeur and majesty. And having spent some years in Banaras, he enriched Carnatic music by integrating some aspects of Hindustani music. He also introduced the style of the raga being introduced in the song itself. Mr. C. Rajagopalachari advised many people when they were listening to music, he said, don't worry about what raga it is, just enjoy it. Here, the people will be trying to say, hey, this is Kalyani, this is Bhairavi, and then they will be most often wrong. So displaying their ignorance of both the ragas. So here, you didn't have to worry about it because the song itself had the raga at the end. And Mr. Muthuswamy Dikshitar had very cleverly manipulated his knowledge of Sanskrit and the wordplay in introducing the raga in every composition of his. So you knew what raga the song was in. I don't want to stand between you and we had a wonderful treat earlier in the morning. It seemed to be that while in the name of inaugurating this, I am causing an interruption. And I don't want to stand between you and the other artists. It was delightful to see so many of them perform so well. So there is a very rich talent here, and then these celebrations will provide plenty of opportunity for these young artists to display their talents. And I also want to compliment Mrs. Ramaswamy from the talent they displayed, the depth of her and the intensity of her training, which showed in the performance by these young artists. And if there are other music teachers who want to take up this opportunity and have similar celebrations, we would welcome them. Okay. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I have the honor of introducing the two keynote speakers this morning. The first keynote speaker is Mrs. Hema Murali, who's a daughter of well-known Sri V. Narasimhan, who served as the Under-Secretary in the United Nations for many years. And she hails from a family of great musicians. In keeping with the family traditions, Mrs. Hema Murali has great interest and love of Carnatic music and has had 14 years of training primarily with Sri K.S. Venkatraman under the close and intense supervision of the great Musri Subramanya Iyer. She has learned Sri Dikshitar's Kritis and has abiding interest and admiration for the greatness of Sri Dikshitar's compositions. So she'll be sharing her thoughts with us on Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar, a titan among composers. Mrs. Murali.
It's with a heavy heart that I have to start by paying homage to a great person, a great musicologist, Sri T.S. Parthasarathy, who left us at the age of 93 after a remarkable life of dedicated service to the various classical dance forms of India, to the field of music, to Carnatic music, and especially to the legacy of Saint Tyagaraja. He suggested the title for this presentation, Muthuswami Dikshitar, a titan among composers. Dr. William Jackson of Indiana University writes in the foreword to his thesis, "Over the past year, he has been my living dictionary and the key unlocking the structure and meaning of Saint Tyagaraja's Kritis. His 50+ years of participation in Carnatic music, scholarly studies, and religious understanding have made him a treasure house of knowledge, and his friendly graciousness and generosity make him a pleasure to work with and know." Now coming to the subject of today's presentation, to quote Sri T.S. Parthasarathy, the Dikshitar family, like the Bach family of Germany, is a most fascinating family in the history of Carnatic music. For about a century and a half, from the middle of the 18th century to the beginning of the 20th century, its members were composing, playing music, making rich and varied contributions to what may be called the Periclean age of Carnatic music. Its greatest member was Muthuswami Dikshitar, who lived from 1775 to 1835. Carnatic music has benefited in more ways than one by the genius of this composer. The sheer poetry of his compositions, the meticulous application of all aspects of the ragam selected for each of the compositions, the rhythmical variations adopted, the imagery used, and the accurate depiction of the Sthala Puranams make him a unique contributor to our musical heritage. Tyagaraja's compositions were emotional outpourings. Dikshitar, on the other hand, was the model of stiff upper lip culture. His kritis are an intellectual foray into the lyrics of the composition, into the delineation of the ragam, and into the complete shastras for the deity he is addressing. When Tyagaraja went to Tirupati, he composed the famous Tharathiyagarada with great emotion and despair. A similar experience for Dikshitar was at Kivalur, when the priest closed the shrine for the afternoon, although Dikshitar was there to pray and sing to the Lord. Dikshitar composed Akshaya Limba Vibho. The Pallavi goes, Akshaya Linga Vibho Swayambho, Akilanda Koti Prabho, Pahi Shambho. The composition is an exposition of his consummate mastery of Sanskrit and the Sthala Puranam of the Sektram, with no hint at all of any emotion. He used only the word Pahi to signify himself and did not even add Mam. The good Lord responded by opening the doors of the Sannidhi and showered his grace on Dikshitar, just as the Lord of the Seven Hills did to Tyagaraja. In Yehi Annapurne, composed just after his vision of Devi for the last time in his life, Pallavi and Annapallavi are melancholy, as if he was bidding adieu to his music and the world. That is the maximum level of emotion he ever showed in his music. Another example, let us take the two great compositions of Tyagaraja in Kambodhi, Every Mata and O Rangasai. In the first, Tyagaraja lamented that Rama would not come and asked whose word he was listening to. In the other, Rangasai was not appearing when beckoned by the saint. Dikshitar composed a masterpiece in Kambodhi, Sri Subramanyaya Namaste, again a cerebral offering, majestic in its lyrics and beautifully set to music. To cite Sri T.S. Parthasarathy, Dikshitar's music is serene, reposeful, and a master of form. If Tyagaraja was inspired by bhakti with his music pouring from his heart as a dialogue with the Lord, Dikshita was inspired by Jnanam, and his approach was from his head, and thus his compositions are a prayer or a hymn. At a concert that I attended, the great musician M.D. Ramanathan said that if you compare the music of the Trinity, enjoying Tyagaraja was like eating a grape, instant appreciation and gratification. Shyama Sastri was like peeling a banana and then eating it, while Dikshita was like a jackfruit, which required labor and effort in order to get a high level of enjoyment. There are many fascinating details regarding Dikshita's life and his compositions. Many of us here read the debate in the magazine Shruti about the differences between Carnatic and Hindustani classical music and how one is superior to the other. There is definitely a great north-south divide in music. But against this, take the example of Dikshita. Here was a very learned man from a very conservative background who lived in North India for a few years and came back to compose songs in Hindustani ragas like Jaijavanti, called Dvijavanti by him, Ramkali, Yamuna Kalyani, Hamir Kalyani, Brindavani Saranga, Jinjuti, etc. As explained by Chitraveena expert Sri Ravikiran, Chetashri in Dvijavanti has been acclimated to the Gamaka style of singing that it would have one doubting if this were a Hindustani raga. He composed Akhilandeshwari in the same Dvijavanti slightly differently with more North Indian touches. His Jambu Pate is a classic in Yamuna Kalyani, a great fusion between the North and South, as also Purahara in Hamir Kalyani. Rangapura Vihara is a flight into the realms of fantasy, so captivating. Then after coming back to his roots in South India, Dikshita was exposed to English music with opportunities to hear Western tunes played by the military band of the East India Company. Again he was fascinated by this and composed small songs in Shankarabharanam with no gamakams, songs like Shyamale Meenakshi, Varashiva Balam, Rajiva Lochana, etc. The Notuswara Sahityas he composed to Western music is another facet of his genius. At the request of the collector of Madras, Mr. Brown, Dikshita composed 11 songs to famous European tunes, including Satatam Pahimam to the British national anthem, God Save Our Queen or King. In addition, he composed 29 more songs based on other famous Western tunes. Dikshita's brother Baluswami Dikshita became so fascinated by the Western violin that he learned to play it in the idiom of the Carnatic music. Now this instrument has become completely converted to our music and has produced such great vidwans. This is, however, a digression. The main point is to illustrate the broad-minded and adaptable brain of Dikshita, that he could assimilate Hindustani and Western music into the Carnatic system. With a few exceptions, most of Dikshita's kritis were in Sanskrit. He was a master of alliteration and beautiful phrasing. All his kritis display these qualities. For example, take Kamalambam Bhajare in Kalyani. In the Anupallavi, he used Kamala in different ways. First to depict the goddess Lakshmi, secondly to refer to Kamalapuram, another name for Thiruvarur, the site of the famous shrine for the deity Kamalamba, and lastly to the lotus, Kamalavadana. In this Anupallavi, he referred to Devi as Mridu Gadana, soft spoken. Thus, he composed the Anupallavi with no aspirated consonants and only words with soft consonants to go with the adjective soft spoken. Another example of how carefully nuanced his use of words was. The Charanam reads, Sarvasha Paripuraka Chakra Swaminim, Paramashiva Kaminim, Durvasarchita Gupta Yoginim, Dukkhadvamsinim, Hamsinim, and goes on with many more captivating rhymic phrases. Dikshita reveled in intellectual beauties. The Gopucha and the Shrotavaha types of yatis, figuring in some of his kritis, reveal his skill in composing. Gopucha yati is where the words are built like a pyramid, and Shrotavaha yati is where it is built like a funnel. In another masterpiece, the Gopuchayati is shown in Tyagaraja Yoga Vaibhavam, where he goes on to say Agaraja Yoga Vaibhavam, Raja Yoga Vaibhavam, Yoga Vaibhavam, Vaibhavam, Bhavam, Bham. In the Charanam, he used the Shrotavaha Yati, starting with Sam Prakasham, Swarupa Prakasham, Sakala Tattvadi Swarupa Prakasham, Shiva Shaktyadi Sakala Tattva Swarupa Prakasham. As written by Professor Shambhamurthy, it should be pointed out that in all these renderings in the different Yati patterns, there is a meaning for each of these split up or dissected words and phrases. In addition, he used to weave in the name of the ragam for the composition directly as Hamsadvani Bhushite in Vatapi Ganapatim, or as Samsara Bhityapahe for Arabhi, indirectly including the name in the song Sri Saraswati, or for the same Arabhi, Samsara Bhityapaham in the Chaturdasha Ragamalika song Sri Vishwanatham. Finally, going to Dikshita's musical genius, again to cite Sri T.S. Parsarthi, the other outstanding feature of his music is that it presents a vivid, accurate and a full picture of the ragam employed and not merely some of its facets. His songs were in a slow measure, Vilambita Kalam, with a Madhyama Kalam passage towards the end of the Anupallavi and or Charanam. To quote Professor Shambhamurthy, this gave him the opportunity to introduce embroidery patterns in the musical texture. The subtle gamakams and delicate shruti bring out the individuality of each ragam in bold relief, with the stately Madhyama Kala Sahityam coming at the end as a crowning conclusion. To Dikshita, a ragam was not a mere scale or assembly of swarams. He was a master of the Alapani tradition as described in the text, and he fitted this into his kritis. His vision of the ragam was therefore clear and comprehensive, and his portrayal of them precise and rich. To go back to my favorite Kamalambam Bhajare, the beauty of the ragam is delineated so perfectly in this song, making this probably the best in Kalyani. When you sing the charanam with the tambura, there is a perfect resonance between the tambura and notes going from the lower pa, re, which happens to be because of the strumming, and it is a wonderful experience. In this kriti, Swaraksharam is used unobtrusively and extremely effectively for all the 7 swarams. Without belaboring this aspect, for there are many more, for example, knees, than there are used for swarams. His composition in all of the important ragams are a lesson in that particular ragam's special usage of gamakams, prayogams, and a tutorial of what is essential for that ragam. His father is the originator of the ragam Hamsadvani, and Dikshita composed Vatapi Ganapatim to completely characterize this ragam. More importantly, for the rarer ragams like Shubhapanturali in Sri Satyanarayanam, Kumudakriya in Ardhanarishwaram, Lalita in Hiranymayim and others, the master that he was, he wove the ragam into a beautiful texture that holds you spellbound and instructs you on the salient features of each. He composed short pieces in Vivadi Melas under the Venkatamaki scheme, and these are among the great assets for students of the theoretical aspect of Carnatic music. Again, to cite M.D. Ramanathan, he said that the structure of a song by Dikshita was always wonderful. Citing Balagopala in Bhairavi, he said that very few composers would start a kirtanam, both Pallavi and Charanam, in the lower sthai, whereas Dikshita's kriti rose like a temple, soaring above and moving to a pinnacle of music from the lower sthai. Dikshita's mastery over language, his fertile and open mind that led him to assimilate nuances of music from other parts of the world, his knowledge and understanding of the beauty of the various ragams, and his knowledge and history of each of the temples he visited, made him a great composer and fit to be called Titan among composers. I have requested my good friend Maragatham Ramaswamy to render this song, Kamalambam Bhajare, for us. After all, a song is to be heard, not to be talked about. Please note the lyrical beauty of the song and Kalyani in all her glory and embellishments.